Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Training, Learning, and Development Community's Bridge to Success Transitioning to Learning and Development Conference. So glad that you're here. I'm seeing everybody popping in. There's Lainey. Is that Cindy? Oh, Cindy, you've got a new profile picture. Awesome. That looks great. Excellent. Bobby's there. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. This was a little bit later in the afternoon for me on Pacific time, which is different, but I actually love it since I'm on this end and I can put my full attention into it. And I'm really looking forward to this one. We have Sharon Tjaden-Burkes here to talk about skills and competencies from my teaching days that helped me in my ID job. This is a topic that I love watching and learning more about just because that overlap has always been consistently interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And so, Sharon, I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to hide myself from the screen and let you take over.
Hey, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. Like Louise said, my name is Sharon Tjaden-Burkes. It's a CH, it's a TJ that sounds like a CH. I'm thrilled to be here and even happier to share my experience with you. Louise was asking me how I came about making these networking sessions, and they grew out of a TESOL international presentation that I was intending to give in person in 2020, and then it went virtual. And so it was a recorded asynchronous session that I gave about my transition to the field of instructional design. And I had so many messages from attendees at that conference about, can I ask you questions? Because I really don't know how much longer I can do teaching. And so I just opened up a Zoom room and there was a lot of interest. And I was like, well, let's do this next month. And then the month after that, and the month after that. So I've been doing this for about 4 years. And it's been incredibly rewarding. I don't get paid for it, but I just like giving back. And so that's why I'm here to talk to you today. So I'm going to get my slides going to guide us through. Ooh, look at the hearts. So cool. Get that presenting. Okay. Full screen. Okay. Okay, and my notes. There they are. Maybe. There we go. So I have 4 main areas that I'm going to talk about. Just, as Luis mentioned, the overlap between these two fields is really important to talk about. And I thought I was going to have a top 10 for skills and competencies, but I wanted to narrow it down to 8. I have an area where I'm going to talk about our doubts that we sometimes have when we're thinking about transitioning to a new field. So that's the what about section. And I'm going to end with some final thoughts and, of course, a plug for my networking sessions. So let's get into it. So I want to start with a reflection because I am a teacher. Before we get into the content, I think it's important to create some space for just a minute of personal reflection by considering these questions on your screen. I'm going to be quiet for a minute. It might feel like a long time, but it's important to take stock of where you are and what you think you're bringing to a future employer. So take a minute and jot down your ideas wherever it's comfortable for you, and we'll continue after a minute of reflection. Okay, and that was a minute. I don't know if it felt like a long time to you or not. It feels like a long time to me because I'm like, oh, I hope they're not bored. All right. I want to talk just a little bit about my own personal road, where I'm coming from. I got into teaching after I finished my master's degree in 2006, and I spent 13 years teaching ESL in the higher education space. While I was teaching, starting in 2017, I started video editing as a hobby and a side hustle. And I just needed a creative outlet because teaching was really burning me out. And it was helpful in the summer when I was able to do something a little bit different that exercised a different part of my brain. In 2018, 2019, I went back for a graduate certificate in technology enhanced learning through my university where I was teaching because it was free. I really, at that point, was looking to just get out of teaching altogether because it was just not compatible with my life as a mom of 2 young kids. And so in 2019, I was able to transition out, and I got a job at a local community college in media production for the e-learning division because of my video editing skills. I did not know when I started that hobby that that was going to be a thing that would help me get out of teaching, but it ended up being incredibly useful. I stayed in that position until 2022, and then I transitioned into an instructional designer position with the same e-learning division at Sinclair Community College. And now I work with the science, engineering, and mathematics division to create online and blended and competency-based education courses. And I'm also the point person who makes competency-based education courses for our students. So that is where I'm at now. So the overlap between teaching and instructional design is definitely a different job than teaching, but I think this slide reassures you that there is a lot of overlap. What I'd like to say here is that if you find that the topics that are exclusive to teaching are what you are really satisfied doing in teaching, they're your wheelhouse. You really love those things. You're probably not going to find a ton of personal fulfillment if in the ID job, if that's the only thing that you're really interested. But if you are interested in this overlap, this area here, that's your foot in the door. And then I know, like, if you haven't done these things over here, but you have a desire to grow and a desire to learn, I think that you can do it. I think it's incredibly useful. But if it makes you shudder to think about doing any of this stuff and your heart is just over here, it might not be the right decision to jump into instructional design. Just personal opinion. So my top 8, jumping right into it. So depending on your new role, you might be working on a large team or with a few people or even just by yourself. If you find yourself working with a team, maybe 10 to 20 people, you're not going to be doing everything yourself the way you were when you were teaching. If you have a lot of anxiety about, if you have a lot of anxiety and one of your tools with dealing with your anxiety is to be in control of all the processes, instructional design might not be a great fit, especially if you're working on a team. It might be if you are the only person that is driving all the instructional design for the whole company. It might be. But if you're working with a team, you need to be able to let people do their jobs and learn what the tasks that you've been given are. That was really surprisingly difficult for me because I found myself just trying to sit on my hands sometimes to be like, that is not your job to make that graphic. That is her job, like these, and no one was, telling me this. It was just kind of like gentle, like, well, remember, like Mary takes care of that and Penny does this. So that was an adjustment. So that's all related to project management. Now, time management, I will say that the pace also is different depending on your job. I don't feel like I'm moving at breakneck speed anymore, the way I was when I was teaching. So I've needed to learn how to pace myself. And one of those things is not taking action right away, which is really like counterintuitive to me as a teacher. Like I always was so used to like reacting. But sometimes it has really benefited me to not respond right away to that email, to wait a day and see if someone has figured it out, or to see if some change needed to happen before I took off on a project, or if someone else needed to chime in. So I've also needed to be able to figure out how to effectively use downtime with the projects that I'm working on, with all the different people involved. Sometimes I'm waiting to get something. And when it comes to me, I have to be ready to do something with it, but also like, I can't just sit here and twiddle my thumbs and, wait for that to come. So I am learning how to kind of have a list of tasks that I can do at any time, things I want to learn, and then be ready to put those on hold for those projects that come through that, there's the piece that I needed. I can push that forward now. So if that sounds exciting to you, this might be the right job for you. Also, learning how to be self-motivated to continue to learn and grow is super important, because a lot of your day is up to you to plan. And if that sounds challenging, some people need those preset rhythms that the teaching gives us, where class begins, class ends, class begins, class ends. That's not always how things work in this kind of job. So if you like to be able to decide how you use your time, when you can really dive in, when you can pull back, when you collaborate with others, this is going to be a good fit for you. So for my current role, I moved curriculum design down to the bottom of this slide because I don't really do it as much as I thought I would be doing it. Right now in my position, the subject matter experts, the faculty at my university, are the people that are driving those decisions. I don't really have a say in that. So I'm mostly leaning on them for guidance about how the course looks, in terms of how many topic objectives are we tackling in this particular unit. So I found that hasn't been super important in my daily work. But I will say that being able to communicate with different people has been super important. Learning how to be sensitive to people's needs and priorities, being proactive in communicating, being clear, and most importantly of all, assuming the best about everyone is also just so important for effective communication. And I've been surprised how much just having strong communication skills has really carried me through this first year. All right. My next 4 that I have listed up here, I will say have been helpful throughout my first year, but I don't think that I use them every day. But I've definitely drawn upon these skills and my previous experience in these areas to inform my current practice. So it's important to remember that as a teacher, educated in the field of education, you are already more knowledgeable than most subject matter experts about what to do to help someone to learn. And it's surprising sometimes to me that things like self-reflection, peer assessment, measurable action verbs, and learning outcomes are not well understood by subject matter experts that I work with. And I think that this is what makes you so valuable. Having that knowledge base gives you insight and perspective that subject matter experts often don't have. Okay. So things I've learned in the first year. It just kind of listed here. These aren't in order of importance, or just, this is just my notes about things that I've learned in the first year. So most of my job is working with and inside the learning management system, the LMS. It's some course building, but it is a lot of communication and hand-holding and troubleshooting. A lot of troubleshooting, a lot of, this isn't working. Can you help me? And why isn't this working? So it's a lot of systems thinking, breaking the problem into pieces and trying to figure out what is working and under what conditions, and what's not working and under what conditions they're not working. And it's also a lot of working with team members and learning from them. It's a lot of admitting what I don't know, and not being ashamed about that, and having a positive attitude about learning. One thing that has just been real fun is the internal systems and processes that are in place where you are at, how in our community college, how some things are IT and some things are e-learning. And it's funny sometimes what people can get really passionate about what is an IT thing and what is an e-learning thing. Surprising, I didn't know that was going to happen. Skills I leaned on in my first year of teaching, also not put up here in order of importance or anything. I came into a great team with a lot of institutional knowledge and materials to help orient me to the systems in place for doing our work. I also had extremely helpful colleagues who guided me through some of these processes. I did a lot of tinkering in my LMS training shell to see how things worked and how things didn't work. And if I were interviewing today for a job in instructional design, I would make sure to ask about this. Are there resources that you will have access to, whether those are documents, manuals, other colleagues that you can ask questions to? Or are you creating everything from the ground up? Is there an expectation to collaborate and work together to problem solve? Or is it more independent, where you're going to be expected to answer your own questions? I think that those are excellent questions to ask in an interview, and they should be able to answer that. It came up in the interview that I had for my current position. They asked me, how do you work on teams? Do you prefer to work independently, or do you prefer to work with others? And I think that was really helpful for them to understand what my expectations were coming into the job, and for me to get a sense for what they wanted, to know if we were a good fit. So actually, one of the first tasks that I was asked to do when I came into this role was to help create videos to communicate monthly updates about our LMS. So communicate out to our faculty and staff about what the updates were to our learning management system, which I was surprised that we make videos about this and people watch them. They do. Some people do. So I quickly became immersed in the processes of releasing, testing, and deploying updates to our LMS, and then distilling down into a short informational video, and then use that, and then take that video and then communicate it out to faculty and staff. I also started tracking and reporting out viewing analytics to show trends and how often and how much of these videos our users were viewing. I did not know that this was going to be like my thing, but it quickly became so. People liked the videos and the viewership increased. And now I know more about the LMS than I ever thought possible because of all the experience. So I think it's a good example of how people who do well in this field are people who are willing to learn to try something new and to ask questions. So if that sounds like something that excites you, this is a great career for you. My biggest surprise was how slow course design and revision can be in higher education. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have been so surprised, but some explanation behind this. And in our community college, faculty receive a small stipend to compensate them for their work on an online course. for whether that course is being created new for the online space or whether it's being revised. It is already an online course, but is being revised after a period of time. So oftentimes well-intentioned faculty members don't find the time to create or revise their courses with me. And although I'm ready to work, I cannot create the content without them. So many times the course is postponed instead of just being developed when it's assigned to me. If we were able to just do all of the steps as they, without delays, it would only take a couple months to get it done. But sometimes they get pushed back for a whole year. Things happen. So the next part is our what about. So you might still have some lingering questions and doubts about moving into this field. And so that's the purpose of this slide, is to give some encouragement. So what about the stuff I don't know? I would definitely say don't focus on that. Talk about your desire to learn and then provide evidence of times that you've learned something to meet a need. That's really what they care about. It's surprising sometimes how many people don't want to learn, but show that you want to and that you have been able to do that. And also lean on the fact that technology is changing all the time. You might learn the tools of today, but that doesn't mean a whole lot for 5 or 10 years from now if you're a person that doesn't like to learn. As to what do you say about why you're leaving teaching, it might be hard, but don't talk about the things that you hate about teaching. Talk about the ways that you want to grow. You don't even have to say why you're not able to grow in those ways in teaching. Just talk positively about the ways that you want to grow. My favorite question, what about leaving in the middle of the school year? My poor dears, I will say to you so confidently, they will be fine. And you might even be sad about how fine they will be, and they will be okay. And also remember that if you're burnt out on teaching, there is someone else who is fresh and excited and will come in to do that job. So it will not be the catastrophe that you might think it will be. And my last thing about all the rejection, because that is a very real reality when you're looking for a job, all it takes is one person to give you a chance, and then just keep going. That's all I can say. I know that you can do the job. If you've been a teacher, you can do this job. So it just takes one person to take that chance with you. My final thoughts are: know what your responsibilities are. Don't assume that you're responsible for completing all parts of a project. Know the players on your team and what everyone's role is. It's so helpful. And also consider how gratifying it is for the people on your team, for them to know that you respect their expertise and what they bring to the table. It makes them feel good, and everyone is better for it especially when you're working on a team, dividing those tasks up and giving people the space to do what they're really best at. Other final thoughts: transitioning teachers bring such valuable experience and perspective to the instructional designer role, and your experience with students is so critical for viewing learning experiences with the learner-centered lens. I think that I underestimated how helpful it was to have a teaching background coming into my role. Not everyone who is in the same role that I am at in my current job has taught before, but it's that variety and that diversity in the field that makes it such a rich community to be part of. And it's been real exciting to have people be like, oh, wow, you taught ESL? Oh my gosh, what was that like? I have colleagues that come from so many different backgrounds. One of our instructional designers was a dental hygienist. So, but she loves learning and she loves technology, and she does great in this position. So I think that's one of the surprising things about the field. People come from all different walks of life. And lastly, I have my shameless plug for my networking sessions. They're called IDEA networking sessions, standing for Instructional Designers and Educators Alliance. I have listed my past heavy hitting guest speakers. Karen North, yeah, she was one of my first guest speakers, I think either in September or October 2020. And so on my left, I have the biggest guest speakers that I've had. And on the right, just some everyday teachers that made the transition and were able to do it. I've even had people who've come to my sessions, gotten their job, and then come back and spoken and shared their experience. And so it's been very, very, very exciting. So I hope that you come. And my next session, if it will advance, I don't know. Come on. It's not. No, I don't know why it's not coming up. Let me exit out. Maybe that'll help. Oh. Nope. Still doesn't want to do it. It's crazy. Did you see it there? It was up and then it went away. Let me try one more time. Okay, can you see that slide? Okay.
Okay, we can see that slide. So I see that you're in Canva.
Yeah. Okay. How about now? Yes?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I have my QR code. If you want to go to that, it'll take you straight to the registration page for February 6th. They're always the first Tuesday of the month from 7 to 8 p.m. And this next time I have 3 guest speakers, so it's going to be super fun. Steve Corney, I don't know if anyone's connected with him on LinkedIn, but he has a mentoring program where he has real clients that have an e-learning need, and he works with transitioning teachers, and they get experience, making e-learning objects for people who need them. So come hear more about it. It's going to be super exciting. And I think I've talked a long time, but I'm willing to take questions. We're here.
Okay, I got one question for you, and sorry if I missed if you had answered this, but Don Cookie was asking if you were offering a copy of the slides.
I can, yeah, not a problem. I can put it in the chat. So
Awesome.
Let me stop sharing, and I'll get that in the chat. Happy to do
Excellent.
So.
So Sharon, did you talk about when you first heard about instructional design?
I didn't, but I can. Oh, let me 1 second. Here we go. Okay, now I can put it in the chat. I can tell you exactly how that happened.
Okay. Yeah. I'd love to hear that part of it.
I was having a really tough day at work, and I was like, I got to get out of this job. I'm so tired of this. And I went to Glassdoor and I put in education. And one of the jobs that came up was called, it wasn't instructional designer. It was called, it was something with Anthem, the insurance company. I think it was like learning consultant or something like that. And I was like, say what now? And I was reading the job description. I was like, well, that sounds a lot easier than what I'm doing. You're creating this stuff and then you don't have to deliver it. And then by that one job posting, I just started looking at more and I was like, what's this instructional design thing? And then I was like, oh, I could do that. Why can't I apply for that job? And how much money? You make a lot more money than I do. Why is that? What? So that looking at all those job postings about instructional design made me look at, well, what do I need to do that? What kind of skills? What is it? What are they asking for that I don't have? And that made me consider, what do I have access to that's free that could kind of meet that need? And that's what led me to the technology enhanced learning certificate. It wasn't like learning Articulate. It was like adult learning theory, instructional design basics like ADDIE. It was a lot of course design, accessibility, things like that. Real across the board basics that you would need for instructional design. And I'm like, yeah, that'll work. That'll work. And not only will it teach me something, but it'll also be a credential to say this person knows something related to technology and education. So yeah, that was helpful for me.
Wow. So, you've talked to, dozens and dozens of transitioning teachers or teachers that have come through the other side. I mean, what is like pretty much the primary reason why people start or teachers look for an out or
Mhm.
and especially come to instructional design? Is there
Yeah.
any one reason that stands above the rest?
Oh, let me just think about that for a moment. Maybe freedom, really. I mean, I've heard that a lot about I'm not an autonomous person. I don't know why I have a master's degree and I'm in this job where I have no decision making. And there's lots of stuff like burnout and I want to go to the bathroom when I want to go to the bathroom. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, I can go to the bathroom whenever I want. I'm like, man, like, really? Like, that's the bar, is being able to use the bathroom. Look at all the claps, they know. So,
Yeah,
um,
Abby mentioned that earlier in the chat. Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah, I
yeah.
can't even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that huge of a deal in higher ed because I can leave adults alone in the classroom if I need
Mhm.
to go. But sometimes there is kind of like I got to make sure you're doing something. I
Yeah.
can't just abandon ship in the middle of, teaching a lesson.
Mhm.
So it
And
is.
I've heard that like some, like transitioning over to training, you sometimes miss that fulfillment that you had when you worked with, with your students. Is there
Mm.
anything, I mean, do you ever feel that, or is that ever something that comes back to you where you might, that you really miss teaching and so maybe you do something part-time, coaching or something else for that was similar to maybe what you had done in the past?
Perhaps later
Yeah.
on, after I'm not constantly taking care of children.
Mhm.
Because the educator side of me, I feel like I'm all full on helping another person with my kids. I have 2 kids and I have 2 stepkids too. So there's 4 little people and they all have needs and they all need to learn things,
Yeah.
and I'm all good. I don't need to do that right now, but maybe at some point in the future I could see wanting to do that, but really what satisfies me is knowing that my talents and gifts are helping. I'm a helper. I want to be in a helping profession.
Mhm.
And actually, for like a very short moment, I considered going into nursing. And then I was like, oh my God, I don't know. Like, there's no, what's the word? Fast way to do that at my age. I was like, okay, maybe not. Maybe I do something a little more along the lines of what I've already done.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question from Vandana. Um, the question is, I'm planning a self-learning journey to become an ID.
Mhm.
Assuming dedicated effort, what time frame could I expect?
I think it depends on your market. Like what's around you. Are you wanting to work in person somewhere around you? Or are you gonna go remote? I hear that the remote jobs have really high competition because a lot of people want to work remote. For me, I can speak from my personal experiences, and this is dated at this point. This is 2019. I transitioned before the pandemic. I um I started seriously looking in April 2019 and I was hired in August.
Mhm.
And I would say it was like 40 some jobs I applied for and I had 2 serious interviews. I
Mhm.
didn't get the first one and then I got
Mhm.
the second one.
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
months to a year is yeah, I would say that sounds realistic.
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen in 3 months.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I think I've spoken to a couple of teachers that made the transition really quick, but they landed in basically terrible jobs.
Okay.
Jobs where all of a sudden all they were doing were organizing PDFs,
Okay.
and not really doing much on instructional design. It was mostly like, just making sure that all of this, like these information flyers were getting passed out to the right
Mhm.
people, the sales team and whoever at
Mhm.
the right time. So it can really depend. All
Yeah.
right, let's see. Any other questions? Anybody? This was absolutely fantastic, Sharon. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing with us.
Of course.
Let's
And
see.
I hope that you come. If you're out there and you want some networking, want to meet some other people who are doing the same kind of thing, we are such a welcoming community. We love new people. I love seeing you. I love positive, motivation and enthusiasm is so helpful. It's contagious.
Yeah. No, and Sharon, I'm also getting that, you're not doing it because you're trying to get rich. You are actually I know it's funny, right? It is a thing where
I
you're
make zero
legitimately
money.
right. Well, I mean, it's just you're not like marketing hardcore or
No,
doing anything like that. You're
no.
really wanting to do it because you're wanting to help. So
Of
and that
course,
is
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely evident because I'm along the same lines. I don't really, have much, I have a day job and
Mhm.
that's my thing, but I've just been in this space for so long that I love like just building these things.
Wow.
Um, let's
Yeah.
see here.
Makes the world go
And
round.
yeah, I don't. Okay, so here's one from Mark. Do you feel like there's a stigma against teachers applying into ID?
I can't speak for the corporate space. I will say I had my first serious interview was for a corporate position, and I felt like there was a little more like, I don't know if you know what this is. A little more like, tell me about how you make a course. And I was like, really? Like, I have a master's degree in like education, but sure, I can tell you how I would make a course. I don't know. It definitely wasn't the right fit for me anyway. Um, if I got that job, I don't know how I would have enjoyed that a year after that. But when it came to interviewing it for higher education, there was definitely not a stigma. I think that they were really pleased that they had someone who had the student experience. So I can't speak a ton for the other industries or sectors. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. All right, let me see if there's anything else here.
Jan says the idea meetings start and end on time. They absolutely do because I have kids to put in bed. So every
Excellent.
time.
All right. Well, I am not
Yes, nice
seeing
to
any
see
other
you.
questions. You know what I'm going to do? Let's see. I want to. I'm going to post the link to the TLDC because we've been doing these events regularly for like 3 years now, 3+ years, and this is the fourth one in this series that we've done for educators. The recordings for all of those are free, so you can go onto the page that I just pasted. You'll find lots of conversations like this one, three other
Mhm,
past events that you can check out, and they're all going to be helpful. And people like Heidi Kirby,
mhm.
and of course Kara North, who was like early like 2016 coming onto TLDC way
Mhm.
back when she had just barely started. It felt like
Good for her.
has been around. Yeah. So I think she did a session for this series as well. So you can check those out. Those are all free. So yeah. And Sharon, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us.
Yeah.
You ever need anything from this community, let me know. I think that definitely aligned. We are the subject matter that I cover is just a lot more broad, but I do like to go back to this like at least once a year because there are definitely people out there that that this is helpful for. So I'm so glad
Yeah.
that you're participating and we can get the word out about your networking sessions. I think those are
Awesome.
fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Let's see. So we have tomorrow another day. Gosh, I can't believe it's only Tuesday today. So we've still got Wednesday, Thursday, 3 more days of this event. And let's see, tomorrow, Dan Smith is starting out the day with Mastering Corporate Speak, leveraging teaching skills for L&D interviews with the STAR method. And then Lainey is back. I think Lainey's in the chat today, finding your jam in L&D. And then Clea Mahoney will be talking about the value of digital communities for your professional development. That's all tomorrow. Hopefully we'll see everybody there. Thanks, everyone. Whoop, whoop. Thanks, Lainey. And Sharon, thanks again. Yeah, we'll see everybody tomorrow.
Have a great night.